Now we are going to talk about kingfishers, and we have some. Okay, I know I say this every single week, but I learned a lot this week. Kingfishers are weird and cool. I just thought they were like birds that had real big beaks. And while that is true, that is not the entire story. There's a little bit more. So let's get into it. Well, no, actually before, oh, it's Benny. Oh, hey, Benny boy. You're not a kingfisher, you are a dog. So when we started Animal Chat Time, we talked about hammerhead sharks and their ability to locate food using their whole big faces, using electromagnetic pulses. And then we talked about platypuses that did the same thing, that have these big bills and they hunt with electromagnetic pulses, or like feeling them with their bills. And now we're talking about a semi-aquatic bird that has not a bill, but a beak. But it just feels like everything is connected, y'all. Everything is like a little bit like everything else. It's pretty neat. So at first, when I was doing research on kingfishers, I read in the UK that they were vulnerable to unsympathetic management of water resources. And I just wanted to say that out loud because I thought that was such a wonderful way to talk about like land management and development when we're talking about building houses or building parks or building dams or building anything, just to think about like how we have to be sympathetic and empathetic to the animals around us when we're developing these systems. So to say that they're vulnerable to something that's unsympathetic, it just sounds like, you know, you're really thinking about with your heart, which I thought was just so lovely, and just something to put in all of our coconuts when we are building all the things we build. So what is a kingfisher? Oh my gosh, Field, that might be a kingfisher. Whoa. Oh yeah, that's a kingfisher. So a kingfisher is a medium-sized bird. It is always brightly colored. Well, most of the time brightly colored. They're found on every continent except for Antarctica. Penguins are not friends with them. Penguins would probably be friends with them, but penguins just like to live there on their own. They most of the time live near water, and those are the kingfishers that up in Canada we see all the time. Sometimes they live in the forest. They eat fish, invertebrates, water bugs, crayfish, things like that. If they do live in the forest, and they will eat forest invertebrates. So worms, insects, wriggly things. They nest in cavities, and we're going to talk about this later, but they normally nest in tunnels that are dug out of natural or artificial banks in the ground. Some kingfishers nest in arboreal termite nests. So they always want to be, instead of being in like a nest that we kind of think about like a bowl, they like to be completely covered in a tunnel, in a something that has like a roof or a hood on it. So kingfisher diversity is really interesting because we started seeing kingfishers on Earth 27 million years ago. So that's kind of a while ago. They've been here for a while. We can see quite a few of them. Oh, Daniel's here. Well, let's wait until he gets here, and then I will tell you about the fossil record. That's what I'm talking about. Moving a little bit slower these days, friends. But yeah, so the first time we saw hi Daniel, hi Amy, hi everybody, talking about kingfishers, as you may remember, kingfishers, big beak, medium bird, sometimes around water. Now you're all caught up. So we have seen in the fossil record kingfisher cousins since 25 million years ago. So they are super ancient. There were kingfishers that were hanging out with like sharks and turtles and all those other very ancient, amazing things. We see a lot of them in the Australia fossil record. So it looks like there were a lot of kingfishers in Australia, and then they kind of like went off to other places. We see them. Oh, that is an amazing kingfisher. Wow, that is very cool. Good work, Birch. So we see them in like the fossil record in Germany for 30 to 40 million years ago. And then there's some like closer ones that are like only 5 million years old. So they're still very, very old. Now, the smallest species of kingfisher is the African dwarf kingfisher, and it averages 10 centimeters and between 9 to 12 grams. And so that's 3.9 inches or 0.32 to 0.42 ounces. So they're like very, very little. They're just these little cute little friends. But then the largest one is they're in Africa, and they're known as the giant kingfisher. And they are 42 to 46 centimeters. And that is 17 to 18 inches or about 255 grams or like 9 ounces. So they get from like half of a ruler and then another half of a ruler to more than a ruler by like a little bit more. So like this is, it's not a huge diversity, but they can be quite small and then like pretty big. Now, the heaviest kingfisher is actually the laughing kookaburra. And I had no idea that kookaburras were kingfishers, which is pretty neat. Now, they are not the tallest kingfishers, but they do weigh the most at 500 grams or 18 ounces. So they're quite robust, we could call them. In most species, there's no overt differences between boys and girls, which is pretty interesting. Sometimes it's quite small, like less than 10%. So if you look at a boy and girl kingfisher, 90% of them will look exactly the same, which is kind of neat and kind of just like way different from most birds. Now, if you've seen a kingfisher, we totally know what they look like, but I thought it was really interesting the way that I read it. Kingfishers have long, dagger-like bills. The bill is usually longer and more compressed than species that do hunt fish, that are the kings of fishing. And they're shorter and more broad if they hunt off the ground. So there is a shovel-billed kookaburra that lives in Australia and New Zealand, and it digs on the forest floor to find worms and prey and things like that. So it's pretty interesting that we call all of them kingfishers and not all of them fish. Some of them just live in the forest and eat worms. But we, when we are naming animals, we commit to that name and then we just hang on to it forever. It's just, this kingfisher is always going to be a kingfisher. So kingfishers have very, very, very excellent vision. They have binocular vision, which means that they can see things in 3D. So their eyes are capable, their eyes are at the front of their body, and they are able to perceive everything in 3D, so to understand the world around them. There's other animals that don't have binocular vision, that these are mainly like prey animals that aren't trying to hunt. And so when they see something, they're like, there is a tree over there, I don't need to know about the tree. But when a kingfisher is looking in the water to go fishing, they're able to see like, okay, there is water this far away from me, and that's where a fish is going, and I'm able to perceive both close up and far away. Everything is in 3D, which is, sorry, I have a little hair in my mouth, which is pretty neat. They have very, very good color vision. And this is really important because they spend, the ones that do hunt fish spend, Tula, that is awesome. That looks so good. So the ones that fish look down into the water when they're trying to fish, and they need to see like the colors of the fish they're trying to eat, and understand if something is like a crayfish, something delicious, or if something is just like kind of like a wriggled up leaf. Not so delicious when you're a carnivore. So now they do have restricted movements in their eye sockets. So if you have ever seen a kingfisher hunt, they're so interesting. What they do is they completely lock their head into one position so they're able to look at what they're hunting. Now, they don't actually lock their heads. What they're doing is they move their entire bodies so much. So if you've ever seen it, You know, you can look it up on YouTube. There's like some really amazing BBC or CBC nature documentaries that a kingfisher is on a branch and the branch is moving and the whole kingfisher is moving on the branch, but the kingfisher's head looks like it's not moving at all because it is moving the rest of its body so its head doesn't have to move. And so it is it's going up and down and side to side, but it is just so focused on hunting, it is doing all the work so it doesn't have to like move its head and then like lose the fish or whatever it is trying to eat. So in addition to that, which is pretty cool, they also are able to compensate the refraction of water when they're hunting underwater. And so they are able to look at the water and know how deep the water is and know what's under the water. So there are times that, like, you know, if you are looking down in water and you see like maybe a fish, maybe a something, it's kind of hard for you to see. Kingfishers don't have a hard time with it. They just look through the water like there's nothing there at all, and they're able to say like that fish is 1 centimeter down. It wouldn't be a very good fish. It would not know that there is a kingfisher about to hunt it, but it's able to know like it's 1 centimeter down or it is 3 centimeters down. And then it knows how to jump in the water and get it with its delicious little mouth. Now they also have nictitating membranes. Nictitating, it's a little bit tricky to say for me. Oh, cool. Yeah, see, that is an excellent kingfisher with, it knew exactly where that, that fish was. Now, when they go in the water, they go in the water with their eyes open. So they're able to see where the fish is going and what it's doing. And then it has a little bit of a membrane, just a whoop. Oh, that looks great too. Good work, Leaf. I love that. It's so blue. We are going to talk about the blueness of kingfishers in a second, and it is going to blow everyone's mind. Now, when they go in the water, they have this nictitating membrane, and it goes over their eyes, and so they're still able to see, but they don't get like water and silliness in their eyes, which is good, because that would, you know, that would really hurt. Now, like I said, kingfishers, they occupy like a wide range of habitats, anywhere from rivers and lakes, estuaries, which is a mixture of saltwater and freshwater. But sometimes they also live in like forest streamed areas or just like forests in general. They are all kingfishers, they all are related, but because they've been evolving for 20 million years, some are just like, fish are the best, I'm staying here, and others are like, you are silly, worms the best, I'm gonna stay here. There is a black-eyed kingfisher in Australia that lives in a very dry desert, but there are no kingfishers that live in like the Sahara, like a very large desert. Other species live in the high mountains, and some even live like off of like tropical coral shores. So they truly are like kind of everywhere, which is pretty neat. Now, like I said before, they do eat a lot of different stuff. They are carnivores, and so they eat anything from fish, like we will see lots of pictures of, crustaceans like crabs or crayfish, frogs, amphibians, worms, mollusks, spiders, centipedes, reptiles, sometimes even like very small mammals. So like, you know, anything that it can see that it knows it can go like right into their beaks, they're good to go. So yeah, the kingfisher will sit on an exposed perch, if that is a piece of wood or a park bench or in a tree, anywhere, and it will look down at its prey and go, awesome, this is what I want. It swoops down with its binocular vision, so it's able to know in 3D how far away something is. And then what they do is they pick up their prey, so we'll say it's a fish, and then they'll beat the prey with their beaks to make sure that the protective spines and bones and things like that are all kind of mooshed up, a little bit of like a fish smoothie, and then they just like whoop, they eat the whole thing, which is, I think, also kind of neat that that yeah, everyone has these pictures, these amazing pictures of kingfishers, and like, they're so big. How would you eat such a big fish? Oh, you like poke at it a little bit to make sure that it can fit in your stomach, and you can it. Now, sometimes kingfishers are a little bit like owls, that they will have a pellet of bones and other indigestible debris. And so those are kind of neat, because they'll eat a whole fish and then they'll go like, these spines, or you know, some of the bones, or just some parts of the fish I don't like, and they'll make a pellet in their tummies, and then they'll whoop, they will barf it right up. Doesn't mean they're sick. It just means, I don't want this in my tummy anymore. It doesn't feel great. Now, like I said before, the laughing kookaburra is actually a kingfisher, which I had no idea about before. But then when I look at it, okay, yes, it does look like a kingfisher. It has like a big bill. It's kind of stocky. It's kind of like looks like it would be a good bird to hug. Now, they are monogamous, and they do hang out in pairs. Most kingfishers around the world find their mate in February, which is like kind of cute. It's around Valentine's Day. So around February, when everyone is getting a sweetheart, you can think like, oh, the kingfishers are also getting sweethearts. How lovely. So yeah, kingfishers, like I said before, they like to nest in a cavity. They want to nest in like a hole that has like a roof, it has sides and a bottom. Now, normally what happens is, if they're not in like a termite nest or something in a forest, they will make a small chamber, and they'll dig it out of the side of a river or a bank, a lake, things like that. Sometimes even man-made ditches. Anywhere that there's just like a lot of soil and there's not a lot of rocks in it, kingfishers are like, I got this. I'm going to do it. So they build the nest. Both genders do it. They both work on excavation, which I think is very excellent for equity. During the initial excavation, the bird actually finds a chosen place and goes like, yeah, this is where I want to have my tunnel, my little chamber. And they fly super fast into the side of the riverbank or the ditch or whatever it is. And they use their big old bills, their big beaks, to like make a hole. And once they make that hole, then they start digging it out with their beaks. And so they dig this whole thing with their big old beaks. But the first, like, the way that they say, this is where I'm going to live, I'm going to put my flag down, is them flying very fast and very very intentionally at the side of a riverbank, which is kind of neat. So they're always dug into earth when they are digging in earth, if it's not like a termite mound. It's always soft soil or sand. They don't want to have rocks, because, you know, if you're flying at a rock, it's not going to feel very good. Now, the longest tunnel ever created was a giant kingfisher, so the biggest ones, and it was 8.5 meters long, which is 28 feet. So this bird dug a hole with its face 28 feet or 8.5 meters long. I was amazed by this. Everyone's coloring, so I'm into it, but like later you're gonna wake up in the middle of the night and be like, that was very long. Oh, Tula, that looks great. That's a belted kingfisher with like a big old crest. Looking good. Now, we have to talk about color, because color is super interesting with kingfishers. Now, there's two ways that something can have color in nature. It can either be pigmented, so it has like paint or color or something in it. My hair has pigment in it. It has like brown. Other people have yellow, blonde pigment. There's red pigment, things like that. Now, the other way to have color in nature is to have light waves that are somewhere. So a really the best way to describe it is if we look at the sky, most of the time, the sky is blue. And the sky isn't blue because there's paint in the sky. The sky is blue because there are a lot of blue light waves that we're seeing. There's other waves that are ultraviolet, so purple, or they're infrared, red, but there is just so many blue light waves, we see blue everywhere. Now, so that's why the sky is blue. That's kind of neat. But then you look at water in the ocean and you're like, well, why is the ocean blue? Now, the ocean is blue because blue light waves reflect off of water. Everything else is absorbed. Now, the best way to think about this is to think about an echo. So if you were to like yell into your hand or yell into a pillow, your voice waves would get absorbed into this pillow. But if you went to the Grand Canyon and you yelled, then your voice waves would bounce off and all of that will come back to you and you'd hear that echo. Now, this is what light does in water. Water absorbs yellows, reds, violets, oranges, all of those colors are absorbed, but the blue light waves reflect off of water. And so that's why we see water being blue. Again, not because there's blue paint or pigment or things like that in the water. It's because everything else gets absorbed, but you're seeing like an echo of blue wavelengths. So why am I talking about this? I am talking about this because this is going to blow everyone's mind. Kingfishers are not blue. I know you think they're blue, and I think they're blue as well. Kingfishers don't have any blue pigment in their feathers. Kingfishers only have brown pigment, like my hair, in their feathers, but they have something, this is a phenomenon that is called structural colorization. Coloration, just put a syllable in there, it's fine. And that is from a certain angle because there's little nanometers. So like 1/100th of a hair, there's like a very, very, very small lack of pigment. There is a very small layer is what I'm looking for. And that reflects blue. Because they want to be blue, but blue is a really expensive color in nature, and trying to get that pigment takes so much calories and is so difficult to find. It is easier to reflect blue off of their feathers, which is super interesting. So we can think about this in the same way. If you see like a bubble, like a soap bubble, and you look really carefully at it, you can see rainbows on the soap bubble. Now there's no pigment in soap, but how do you see these rainbows? It's the same thing. The pigmentation, it is not pigmentation. It is just a reflection. It is an optical illusion that you are seeing, not even illusion. It's an optical interaction that the light and all the color waves from light are going, whoa, Tula, that looks amazing. All these wavelengths are going on the soap bubble, and the soap bubble is showing us all these colors. So this is the same thing that is happening with kingfisher feathers. It's this very, very, very thin layer that's just reflecting only blue light particles. All the other wavelengths, light wavelengths are being absorbed. Isn't that so neat? And so it's physics rather than biology. So if you're super into physics and super into color, you could study kingfishers, which I think is super neat. So that I thought was just the neatest thing I had ever seen. Oh, that looks awesome, Field. Sorry, Birch. Now I am going to show you some pictures of these little guys, and sometimes bigger guys. So here we are. Here is some kingfishers. So this is called a common kingfisher, which I think is doing it no justice because look how beautiful it is. But amazingly, see, all of the blue on this kingfisher is just light reflecting off of it. It doesn't have any other pigments in it other than the orange pigment that you see on its tummy and on its feet. Everything else is just light reflecting. Is so neat. Now here's another kingfisher. I like this little one because you can really tell that it excavates a lot of tunnels with its face. You can really understand how it could make quite a big tunnel because it has such a big old beak. What a nice friend. This was such a beautiful picture because this is a kingfisher, eyes open, in water, knowing exactly what it's going for. It is an amazing hunter. It's going to be the king of all the fish. And again, all of the blue that you see is just blue particles, blue wavelengths from the atmosphere, which like they're so vibrant and so beautiful. It is amazing. Now here is a kookaburra. We might have seen kookaburras or we've sung about them sitting in an old gum tree. And we say that they laugh at us. They're very, very beautiful. And I had no idea that they were kingfishers until I really looked at it and was like, oh, of course. Kind of like a little small bird you could hug, seems like a good hugger, has like quite a big beak, and yeah, it sits above its prey looking down at what it should eat. So very handsome friend. And here is a crested kingfisher. This is, I think, what Birchenfield and Leaf and Tula have been, or one of the things that they have been coloring and drawing. It has a big old crest. We see these in Canada, and you can see like kingfishers, sometimes their eyes are a little bit bigger than their tummies, that they see a big fish, but after banging the fish a little bit on the wood or the shore, or banging it with their beak and making a little fish smoothie, they're able to eat that whole thing in one swoop, which I think I think sometimes when I'm having dinner, I eat like a kingfisher. I want to have all of this, and then I go, oh, I need just a little time off. Let's have some questions. I know that I talked a lot about their color because I thought it was so cool. So if anyone has questions.
The last kingfisher looked like it was a little bit blackish.
Yeah, so so kingfishers do have some black pigments in them. They don't, so yeah, so they have orange and they have black, and some of them they do have really dark brown that has a little bit of blue on top of it, so it looks black, sort of like a Steller's J or things like that. But yeah, there's such a diversity in the colors that we see in kingfishers, especially like the crested kingfishers that we see up here in Canada. If you were old enough, you would know they're on the $5 bill, but maybe Mara remembers that with me. Daniel, you have a question.
How do kingfishers see at far and closer, and how do they see in 3D vision?
Yeah. So they have binocular vision, and so they're able to see in 3D because their eyes are very much like ours. So they're at the front of their faces, and their eyes expand and contract the same way that ours do. They also, the way that they focus is very similar to humans, that their eyes can focus up close and then far away. So if you are able to focus far away and then further, you're able to get a better picture of like the 3D world around you. So a lot of predator animals, like raptors, kingfishers, lions, things like that, also have binocular vision because they're trying to see how far away their prey is. And so they're trying to like, is that leaf close or is it far? A lot of prey animals don't have binocular vision in that way because they don't need to know how far away something is. They just need to know they have to run away. So over like the 20 million years that kingfishers have been on the planet, their eyes have developed so well that they're able to see exactly, even underwater, how far something is.
I was wondering what predators kingfishers have.
Ooh, that is a good question. So because they're around the world, they have quite a few different predators. So in North America, well, in Canada, the belted kingfisher, if they get too far north, then things like lynx and bobcats will eat them, which is like the most Canadian thing to ever think about. But then in tropical areas, things like anacondas, or even if they're in the water, then crocodiles will eat them. And then in Australia, same thing. Big old snakes like to eat them. And I guess that's kind of it. Big old snakes in Australia like to eat anything. And crocodiles. So anything that lives around the areas that they live that are just a bit bigger will try to eat them. Not a lot of animals predate birds of that size because it's just a lot of work to hunt a bird like that. But there are some animals that will try to dig out their holes, like raccoons or even Virginia opossums will try to dig out the hole and eat a kingfisher. They don't do it very often because, again, it's a lot of work. Everything in nature wants to conserve calories, so they want to have like the easiest food without doing a lot of work.
Do kingfishers lay eggs?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't even talk about that. Yeah, they totally lay eggs. They lay 1 to 3 eggs, very much like platypuses. Their eggs are bigger than platypus eggs, though. They're not a little jelly bean. But yeah, they lay eggs in their nests. And so in their long chambers that are in the soil around rivers and riverbanks and things like that, at the very end of the chamber, that's where they'll make like a nice padded nest with like feathers and mosses and nummy nums, and the moms will lay the eggs there. They're also cooperative, which is pretty cool, and so the moms and dads both help out equally with the baby birds, which again, equity I think is just really important. It's just so nice to see everyone pulling their weight. There's also been seen, they don't really hang out in flocks, but there has been some accounts of like a family staying together a bit longer, and like a teenager kingfisher will help feed its like baby brothers from like the year before. And so again, I think that's nice. Everyone pulling their weight, whole family sticking together.
I was also wondering where in Canada they live.
Kingfishers don't live in Arctic regions, so they don't live in Antarctica, and they don't live above like the Arctic Circle, but we see them all through Alberta, actually, and through like the southern Ontario. On Vancouver Island we have some as well. They're quite loud, so if you ever go to a river and you hear like, it could be many things, but it could actually be a kingfisher. We do have belted kingfishers all through this area, and I know in like central northern Alberta there are some. So if again you go down to a river, you might see one hunting, swooping around. I see that Mara asked if they migrate. It's a very excellent question. They do not. They normally just like hang out during again, it depends. They're from all over the world, right? But in places like Australia, places even like Canada, they don't migrate because they go into they don't hibernate, but it's sort of like torpor, that they eat a lot of food, and then when it gets really cold, they slow down their heartbeat and they poof out for a while, and they like for a day will hibernate and then go like more food. So we don't see like a lot of them migrating. They just kind of live in places that aren't supposed to get so cold.
Live in Ireland.
Do they live in Ireland? there are common kingfishers. Again, remember when we saw common kingfishers and they're actually beautiful? Those live in Ireland and the UK. And they, again, you'll see them all along the canals and all along the waterways in Ireland, hunting all kinds of things in those canals. But again, if you are walking along the water and you hear like, you know, I would also say, like, go on YouTube with your mom and dad and look up like laughing kookaburra sound. And that you're like, whoa, that's so loud. But then if you hear a kingfisher around where you are, then it's going to sound very, very similar. They're very, very chatty, and it's not like a songbird, like sing song something. It is like a yeah, I would call them flying platypuses. Yeah, which is also like a flying hammerhead shark. I think everything is just exactly the same. So excellent way to end. All animals are exactly the same unless they are totally different.
My question is, how do the eggs come out?
How do the eggs come out? Okay. Well, so birds have something called a cloaca. And so that means they have like one hole for their butt, for their eggs, for their everything. And so do sea turtles. And that is how the eggs come out, because it can also be their butt for pooing. It stretches out quite a lot. And so they, the mummy birds, just like chickens, will develop like an egg in their tummies for a while. And then once it's done incubating in their tummies, then it comes out of their cloaca. And that's why they sit on it, because the baby birds aren't fully developed. They still need to be warm, but they're too heavy to be in the mummy's tummy while they are flying around. So that is kingfishers.